Anyway, I think I'm on tape. Okay, here we go. I'm not good enough to do it without notes, so you just have to bear with me. So, yes, the topic's supposed to be secrets of a mariachi violinist. All right, it's kind of an unusual story, and it's sort of a long road to Mexico. But I thought what you might be especially interested in would be to hear a little bit about mariachi and hear a little bit about how that's led me to a lot of other things. So that's the direction I'm going to go when I get there. So, road to Mexico, yeah, I studied Spanish. I have a degree to teach Spanish. I've never taught Spanish, but anyway, when I got done with my degree at the University of Illinois, I knew, oh, my Spanish isn't that good, and I looked for a job in Mexico, Spain, Italy. I wanted to go somewhere. Got a job in Mexico, and I went down there. So, a lot of you probably already know this. When you're speaking a different language, it's sort of like you step into a different persona. It's a different personality. So I'm a little bit different in Spanish. It's funny. I'm not really quite sure how to explain it. It has to do with culture. It has to do with environment. So I'm sort of a type A. My parents are teachers. What do you expect? I got to Mexico, and guess what? I didn't live with any type A people. I really lucked out, and I lived with a family. I was in the middle of 7 siblings, age-wise. It was great. And they were lazy. They didn't want to learn English at all. So it was great because I got to practice Spanish all the time. Yeah. And they liked to get away from their parents. So a couple of the girls would come up to my room. I had a room on top of the house, and we would gossip. I can gossip in Spanish really, really well, especially Mexican Spanish. But another big part of my life in Mexico had to do with music. So we had Saturday night parties. I played the violin for a long time, but you know what? Violin is really no good at a party. You can't, it's very hard to sing with yourself. And so that didn't work out at all. But we had these Saturday nights. We would gather at Flavia's house. We'd start out with okay tequila and end up with really bad mezcal, by 3 in the morning. But we would sit around and sing songs. A couple of us had guitars. We'd pass around the guitars, and we had these books of music, and we'd play different songs. It was really, really fun. But also, that's how we spent our Saturday nights and how I got to learn a lot of music. I love living in Mexico, actually. It was really fun. The people were nice. I learned a lot. But I didn't make any money. And I thought at some point, I would need some. So I decided I better come back to the U.S. Big culture shock, because I was in Mexico 5 years. I went for one, stayed 5. It was really fun. It was hard to leave, very, very hard to leave. But when I came back, people said, you might try Arizona. It's hot, and it's Mexican population. You probably like it. So that's where I went. I landed up in Tucson, but it was painful not to be in Mexico. In the meantime, I found out there was a woman in the local mariachi, and I thought, well, they have one. Why not have 2, right? So I practiced a couple tapes for a couple weeks, and then I went in one night, and I said I wanted a job with the mariachi. All right, I don't look like I speak Spanish. My hair's wrong, the makeup's wrong, so they sort of fell over, and then after they picked themselves up from the floor, they said, well, here, we'll let you play along on a couple of songs. And you played in Mexico? Yeah, I told them I did. It really wasn't true, but, I was desperate. So they let me play along on a couple of songs, and by then I'd played a lot of violin. So they said, well, all right, we'll let you come in, pay a minimum wage, but if you want to do some on-the-job training. I said, okay, great. But of course, it wasn't as easy as all that. There were a couple of things that really, okay, I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm going to back up. And I'm going to tell you before that, the first 2 things that happened to me in terms of mariachi. The first, so my dad, he met my mom, and he noticed she had 3 months off in the summer. And he thought, oh, maybe teaching wouldn't be a bad gig. He already spoke German, so he got a degree, and he started teaching German at Landfair. At the end of the spring one year, Phil told him, oh, we need you to teach Spanish in the fall. And he said, I don't know much Spanish. I got a D in college Spanish. And the principal said, we don't care. We need you to teach Spanish in the fall, so you have the summer. Get ready. I was 10, my brother was 2, and we spent the whole summer, Mom remembers it very well, in Jalapa, Mexico. Now, my dad was about to turn 30 at this point. We stayed with a family. The guy was a professor, but they were trying to make some money for the summer. So they took us in. We had a room on top of the house. We've got some funny stories with that. But what's important for today is that my mom, who really knows Spanish, tried to explain to the lady of the house, who really knows no English, that we wanted to have a party for my dad. So Marta kept saying blah, 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 blah. And my mom said, So, right? Am I remembering this right so far? Because you know, when you see a traffic accident, people remember things differently. But this is my memory. She can contradict me later. We went to bed, normal, and then we got awakened by a lot of noise. And Marta had arranged a party, and she had brought a mariachi. So there was a mariachi downstairs. Wow, I got to stay up late and watch these guys. They were all dressed in black and playing instruments, and they were so fun. And they got to stay up late, and I thought that was terrific. But that's not all. The neighbors started pouring in, because if you pay for a mariachi, you might as well take use of it. So all the neighbors came in. We were living in a cul-de-sac, and I guess they partied all night. And for the first time ever, my dad went to school the next day without sleeping. He was in shock, I think, for the rest of the summer, because everybody else was just like, oh, whatever. They came home and took a nap, and it was all right. So that was my first experience with mariachi. Well, my second experience with mariachi, well, that was a little bit later. I was living in Durango, and I was playing with the orchestra. This was my best audition ever. I can't believe I did this now, looking back. You think, what a crazy person I was. I got to Durango. I found out who the symphony conductor was, and I called him up, and I asked if I could play. He said, well, come to a rehearsal, and we'll see. So I showed up to a rehearsal, and I have a Roth, very standard Roth instrument, fairly nice case, but fairly standard instrument. He took one look at me. He took a look at the case. He said, sit over there. Usually it's not that easy. The guy I sat with, my stand partner, played in a mariachi. We were about on the same level, and so when he told me, oh, mariachi está fácil, it's easy, I believed him, because I was that naive. I went to go hear him play at a disco one night, and the violins came out and started playing, and no Victor. And I thought, well, what's that liar? The one time I could come hear him, he came out playing trumpet. I couldn't believe it, because you know what? Neither instrument is that easy. But anyway, he played trumpet in this group because his 3 brothers played the violin, and his dad was on the guitarrón. So it was a family mariachi. Anyway, so those were the 2 memories I had in my mind when I went to that restaurant and said, hey, how about letting me play? All right, but as I mentioned, there were some problems. The first was that other woman, she hated me. Sticky Vicky, I'm afraid to say, got into the mariachi by cuddling up to one of the players. So she was a little bit resentful that I just walked in and said I wanted a job. We didn't get along. We played for a year together. We would pass each other in the hallway and not speak. And we played on the stage. We didn't talk. I know, can you believe it? She was so mad. Well, I spoke good. She was Mexican. She was very Mexican looking. She was dark, black hair, long black hair, but she couldn't speak Spanish. She just looked the part, but she didn't act the part, and her violin playing was also horrible. She could sing kind of okay, but you have to cuddle up to the right people. Anyway, I persevered, and finally she got married and moved far away, so that was lovely. Yeah, it took a long time. Now, let me talk a little bit about Mexican mariachi folk music. Most of it's written by men. There's a few that are written for women, by women, but mostly it's men. And so guess what? The songs have women either angels or not angels. The typical mariachi song is, oh, she made me sad and so I drank for 3 days. How many of you have heard a lot of mariachi music? Okay, so some people say, great, you probably already know. One of the big standard songs is called El Rey, the King. This is my favorite song to hate. It's really stupid. It's a stupid song. But anyway, I'm going to give you a little bit of an idea how it goes. All right. So I brought my guitar just so I could. I don't really play guitar, but you know, I'll just pretend I'm at a party. So I'll explain a little bit as I go along how this silly song works. So it's Yo sé bien que estoy afuera, pero el día en que yo me muera, sé que te vas a llevar. Llorar y llorar, llorar y llorar. So far what I said was, I know you kicked me out, but when I die, you're going to cry, and cry, and cry. Not really. Let's see. Dirás que no me quisiste, pero vas a estar muy triste, así te vas a quedar. And here comes the chorus. You'll be irritated when you hear it. Con dinero y sin dinero, hago siempre lo que quiero, y mi palabra es la ley. No tengo trono ni reina, ni nadie que me comprenda, pero sigo siendo el rey. So the chorus says, well, con dinero y sin dinero, with money or without, I still do what I want, and I don't have a throne or a queen, but I am still the king. I hate that stupid song, and we have to play it pretty much every single night. So I started to rebel. I started to get tired of some of these songs, but my real creativity, I have it all written out, so, yeah. So, what did I do? I started to learn all the revenge songs. Because really, why not? So, for example, one of my favorites. My brother's little guitar. What do you do? Nunca pensé que algún día te me pagarías con una traición. Tu falso amor me dejó herida del corazón. Cuando más me diste la mano en el alma el golpe traidor. Y lo que tienes me tienes que tener el cantador. So, golpe traidor, the hit of a traitor. You said you would always love me, and then when least I expected it, you betrayed me. One of my favorite songs to sing. But it didn't stop there. Oh yeah, and I learned funny songs too. This is a fun, I'll just play the first part. Serían las dos means it was 2 o'clock. So the words I'm going to sing, it was 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, and I saw you at the window of your auntie. Of course, auntie, you can read into that. It's great when I get to talk to a group of all women because I can really make fun of, those other people. Works out great. Serían las dos, serían las tres, serían las 4, 5, 6 de la mañana. Cuando te vi, platicando con tu tía en la ventana. So I got you. I saw what you were up to. Anyway, so that's an idea, but what we were singing and what I like to sing. But this led to some creativity. So, and my mom actually met this guy. Anyway, I was dating this guy who was also a mariachi player. He played in a different group from me. And he would just stop by sometimes, all right? So this one night, he stopped by one night. He was not too happy that my mom was in the living room. He didn't stay very long that time. But anyway, he came back after, a long night of singing or whatever. And he opened my refrigerator. And he said, "There's no beers here." So I thought 2 things. First of all, learn some grammar. There's no beers here. And also, I don't drink beer. So really, why would I have a refrigerator full of beans? He got mad and left. And I got madder than he was. I was incensed. So I sat down, I had a keyboard, not a piano, but a keyboard. And I wrote a song about him. And I think the name of the song wasn't very good, but it was my first attempt. I think the name of the song was Me and My Six-Pack. Anyway, I went on to write a few more songs. I think I wrote about 52, and then I thought, well, I should do something with these. 52. The guy who ran the mariachi helped me, and we put together a CD. He helped me choose the right songs. And then it took me about, I don't know, a couple years to record it. It was really a long process because I went in and I laid down the violin track. And there are three, like, you write mariachi music in three-part harmony, so there's three violins, and then I had to get a trumpet player to come in and help me, and one night the guy showed up drunk, and anyway, there were some hiccups along the way, but I eventually came up with a CD. So do you want to just turn that on for a second, and I'll give you a little sense of what the whole thing sounds like. Technical difficulties.
You're going to have to do a technical person.
Well, I'm trying to get this going. Explain mariachi music. I mean, it's not written down, or maybe that's in your talk later. I don't know, but I think that's fascinating.
Good point. I always forget about that. So, yeah, that was one of the things that. Okay, there was.
Never mind.
So, as you notice, a lot of the mariachi music is really pretty happy, even if they're singing about my parrot died and stuff like that. The way it's made up is that there's a guitarrón, which works sort of like a string bass. There's a vihuela, which would look like a mandolin. It's a smaller instrument, so that's the downbeat, the upbeat and the downbeat. And then you've got melody instruments, so you need to have at least one violin and one trumpet. That dialogue between the violin and the trumpet is really what makes a lot of the flavor. That song you heard a little bit of is called a son. It's a certain rhythm. So that's one of the main rhythms that we do. There's only about 5 or 6 rhythms, actually, so the songs get repeated in different ways. The chording isn't even usually that difficult, and most of the songs are actually in major keys. What's difficult about mariachi is that, it's not written down. So when I came in, I had been classically trained. Learning by ear was really, it's a little bit easier now. So I came in, I knew nothing. I was trying to pick up as fast as I could. I eventually started bringing a tape recorder, and I'd set it on to the side of the stage and just record what we did so that I could remember a few things. And the trumpet player helped me out. He would write down just the first notes of the introduction so I could practice those. And he tried to be as supportive as possible. One of the first things he said was, listen to mariachi music all the time. Okay, good advice. But really his advice was, after the first 100 songs, it gets a lot easier. And I thought he was kidding, but he wasn't. It does get easier by now. By now I can pick up stuff a lot faster, or if somebody plays a different version, but anyway, but that's really challenging. Oh, and I forgot to say, whenever you have questions, if you want to shout them out, I'll try to answer them.
If you don't mind, I thought maybe I would just kind of walk around. This is in her backyard with the mariachi. They were just having to get together. Here's kind of an idea of how.
So when my parents came, so I had a party.
Another party, huh?
You do what you can. And this is good since I didn't bring my technician.
It's in her backyard.